let's talk about the best science fiction books I have read. This is my top 10 list as of now, as of all the books I've read so far. If your favorite is not on this list, feel free to yell at me in the comments about your favorites, because maybe I haven't read it and maybe I would love it and it would make my top 10 list. I am putting this list in order, so I am ranking like 1 through 10, but I'm not like super definitive in this order. There's like a few of them that could move up and down, but I guess in general, this is the order that I would place them in. And with that, let's get into the list, starting with number 10. Number 10 is The Practice, the Horizon, and the Chain. I don't even have words for this book. It is gorgeous. It is very thought-provoking. This is a book, like, it just says like a boy and the professor or the woman. Like, we don't even get the names of the main characters, and I believe that's because the concepts are supposed to be more universally applied. So this book, the society is like very hierarchical, and we have this boy who lives among the chained, which are the people who do the dirty work and are literally chained together. And then he is raised to the educated class, and he gets to go to school and learn, and also the educated class can learn from him. So in some way he's made out to be a spectacle to be learned from, rather than like treated as a fellow human, despite him being raised to the educated class. And he's also being taken care of by the professor, or the woman. She's referred to as like both throughout the story. And her father was also one of these people who were raised from the chained up to the educated class. So while she's never actually like experienced the life of the chained before, she remembers stories of her father, and then she is also more empathetic to the boy. And then they also learn, as he's struggling to adjust to his new life, that there are chains at every level of society, even if some of them are invisible, and they work to break all of them free. At number 9, I have Sky Without Stars. This is a Les Mis retelling in space, which is absolutely as awesome as it sounds. This is, it's definitely like science fiction, but it feels like a little bit dystopian. But like also, if you think about Les Mis, it's also a little bit dystopian. There's, you know, this rebel uprising against this government that's not caring for the poorest among them, and the political tensions, and we get to see characters in different classes in this world. Honestly, it's been a few years and I really should be rereading this one, because I have so many fond memories of this one. I was listening to the audiobook. It's a trilogy, and I listened to all 3, and I loved all of the characters. I loved all of the perspectives, and getting to see like how they change things, and the interpretations that they took on the Les Mis story for outer space, for a futuristic world. It's good. For the next book, this is another one. It has been several years since I read this book, but this one has stuck with me. And the thing that stuck with me about this book is the empathy for cultures, for people, for creatures who are different from yourself, and not letting differences put you off, but really trying to understand those differences. And I wish the author would take a page out of his own book whenever it comes to understanding humans that are different from himself, particularly the LGBTQ community. The book is Speaker for the Dead. This book starts with, there's these humans living on this planet that is originally inhabited by this alien culture that's very different from humans. And it starts out with this scientist who was like one of the favorites of the aliens, is brutally murdered by the aliens. And the other people in the community are trying to figure out, why did this happen? Like the aliens and the scientists were getting along. They were forming a bond. Why would they then brutally murder him? And throughout this book, we start to understand how these cultures are so different, but also we start to empathize with these very different cultures. And Both Ender's Game and this book, I felt like there was such a message of empathy despite the cultures being entirely different, and trying to understand them. In Ender's Game, like Ender said, like in order to defeat his enemy, he would have to understand them, but once he understands them, he will love them, and then he no longer wants to defeat them. And yeah. At number 7 on the list, we have a lesbian love story. This is How You Lose the Time War. This is the story of 2 agents in this battle, and they can travel through time. And we get to see the story through their messages to each other, which means they're not very forthcoming, and we as readers, therefore, don't know very much at first. Most of it is just banter, poking fun at each other, and as the story progresses, they start to tell each other more and more things, and they start to fall in love with each other. This is such a fun story. I listened to the audiobook of this the first time through, and I've heard some people like the audio works for them and some people don't. It worked really well for me. For the first half, I was like, I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm having a lot of fun with this. And then the second half, I start to realize more and more what's going on and just fall in love with this story. Coming in at number 6, we have All Systems Red. This is another fun science fiction story. So this is about a robot that is a security unit. And this security unit that calls himself Murderbot calls themselves Murderbot. This book is very careful not to actually use the gender. It's told in first person and doesn't actually gender Murderbot at any point. So I listened to the audio for this one, and I think that's why I keep saying he, but I'm gonna try. This is about a security unit that calls themselves Murderbot, and there's a reason for that you learn throughout the story. But despite the aggressive name, Murderbot just wants to sit and watch TV. They have hacked their governor module, which means they don't actually have to follow the protocols, and they are welcome to just not protect the humans that they're supposed to protect, except Murderbot's a big softie, and the humans are terrible because they keep getting themselves into trouble, and Murderbot keeps going to rescue them. And it's just delightful, particularly the way Murderbot's like, I'm doing this again. I'd rather just be alone watching my TV. So it's, oh my gosh, so much fun and delightful. At number 5, I have Moon of the Crusted Snow. This is a story that whenever I very first finished it, I thought it was just okay, and then it stuck with me and it's grown on me since I finished it. It's like one of those like you keep coming back to in your head, and since you turn the last page, you're like, oh wow, it's one of those. So the biggest thing, this is a story about this Anishinaabe community during the apocalypse. The world's ending and they don't have power anymore. The world around them is, all of these like systems that we built are no longer working, and it's how they live, it's how they survive on the reservation, in their community, how the community relates to each other, and how they go on. And one of the biggest takeaways from this book is one of the elders in the community says at one point, these young people keep saying the world is ending, but our world's already ended and we keep moving forward anyway. And I thought it was so interesting to see the apocalypse from this perspective. At number 4 on the list, I have Those Who Walk Away from Omelas. So this is a very short story. No, is it called a short story? Yes, it is. It's only a few pages long. It's very short. And it's the only Ursula K. Le Guin book that I've read so far, and I need to change that because I love this one. This is about Omelas, which is a utopia, except it's a conversation between the reader. And do you as a reader believe in utopias? Are you waiting for some really dark underbelly to come forth? Would that make this utopia more believable? Why is happiness seen as a lesser emotion? Why do you believe that these people are less intelligent, less mature because they live in a perfectly happy utopia? And of course, we do see the underbelly of the utopia, partly because the reader doesn't believe it. And it's like, would this be more real to you if there was this dark underbelly? And then it tells us about the dark underbelly. And some people, whenever they see this dark underbelly, then walk away from the community, and it's almost asking the reader, what would the reader do? So I read this one, and then I read Those Who Stay and Fight, and I think I just love this conversation around these complex ideas, these warring ideas in your head. And I love the conversation around this, and I think that's why it's so high on my list. And now we are moving into the top 3 science fiction books ever that I've read so far in my life. And coming in at number 3, you ready? Do You Dream of Terra 2? Do You Dream of Terra 2? I love this book. So I read this one. I read it a few months ago. It is a more recent read of mine, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. I was thinking, oh, so many quotes in this book. I absolutely loved my experience reading it, and then it's one that has stayed with me and I haven't stopped thinking about since I turned the last page. This is the story of astronauts who are on a mission to Terra 2, which is this seemingly Earth-like planet, but it's 23 years away, and they are sent on a one-way mission. No human has ever been on Terra 2 before, but they are sent on a one-way mission to go set up a base on Terra 2 and prepare it for humans coming in the future. And this story is about the astronauts, and it's about the journey. It's about how you would prepare to leave home, the only home you've ever known, and you're leaving for good. And yes, you can still send communications back to Earth, but there's a delay in communications. Also, these people that are being chosen for this mission are the only people you are going to be in contact with forever. Well, maybe not forever. There might be humans coming in the future, but for decades. This is a 23-year mission. They are stuck on this spaceship for 23 years before they even get to the planet. And then if humans follow after them, that's going to be another 23 years. There's one moment where one of our characters who is chosen for this mission, you know, she thinks she's prepared for this mission. She's dreamed of this. She wants this. And then she sees an Excel spreadsheet with the list of the meals that she will eat for the next 23 years. And she has a breakdown over the meals that she will eat for the next 23 years because there's not a whole lot of flexibility. This is it. This is all your food options for the next 23 years. It is wild to think about. And I loved this story. I loved the human elements. This really brought out what it would be like for humans to do this. And there's so much to think about in this one, and I absolutely loved it. Coming in at number 2 on my list is Lost Ark Dreaming. Have I screamed about this book enough on my channel? Seriously, go read it already. I have a full review, which I will have linked, where I scream about it more because you should go read it. I absolutely love this book so much. I've reread it and I love it just as much as the first time. The writing is gorgeous. There's so many quotes on this, which I explained some of those in the review video, but also the story is incredible. So this is set in the future where the world is covered in water and people live in high-rise buildings. And there's kind of this like hierarchy within the high-rise buildings, but there's a breach in the tower, and these 3 people who don't know each other and quite frankly don't like each other when they start to get to know each other have to go solve the breach in the tower. And they soon start to realize that they think there's a threat from outside the tower. They think this water monster has gotten in, but the water monster is not the only threat in this tower. There's threats from inside the tower, and they are forced to work together despite not liking each other, and they don't really come to like each other throughout the story, but they come to respect each other. And I loved it so much. This is one of those that has a little bit of an open ending, and it feels like a call to the readers of like, how would you end the story? And I loved it. It's so good. Go read it. And now we are left with one final top bestest book that I've read. Are you ready for it? Can you guess what it is? Probably not screamed about it enough on this channel. It is Record of a Spaceborn Few. I love Becky Chambers, and this is my favorite Becky Chambers book. I feel like that's a little bit of an unpopular opinion. I feel like even like as far as the Wayfarers go, I feel like this is not usually people's favorite, but it's absolutely my favorite. It's the one I've reread the most times. I read it so many times and I adore it every single time. This is a slice of life story of the residents of the Homesteader fleet. This is the fleet that left Earth generations ago and were not welcomed in alien territories. And they decided to stay on the ships, and the ships are their home now. And for generations, they have made a home on these ships. They've learned how to make things sustainable for them. Now, alien worlds have become more welcoming. Some people leave the Homesteader fleet and live on alien worlds. They also get new repairs, equipment, tools from off-world or from off-world, from on-world. They get some supplies from alien worlds, but they continue mostly to live as they have been. Now, because aliens are becoming more welcoming to humans, there's becoming more exchange between aliens and humans, and it is kind of disrupting some of their like very set ways of life on the Homesteader. We follow four character perspectives in this story, and every character is looking for what home and belonging means, and every character finds the answer differently. They have a different answer by the end of the story of what home and belonging means. And I don't even know if I can express fully why this book connects with me and resonates with me so much. Like, sometimes I read this book and I'm like, one day, maybe on one of my rereads, I will be able to explain why I love this book so much. But other times I'm just like, this book, it's so personal. I don't think I'll ever be able to explain why I connect with this story so much. I love all of our characters. I love getting to see their daily lives, and I love getting to see them figure out where they belong and what home is for them throughout this story. And those are my top 10. Tell me in the comments if you've read any of these, what your thoughts are, and if I'm missing some of your favorite books. And I hope to see you in another video. Happy reading!